I wasn't the sister they were after, but I was the one he stayed for. This is my story, how I went from watched to chosen, and how the man sent to guard someone else became mine. I wasn't supposed to hear them. I was looking for my scarf, the navy one, soft as smoke, that always disappears right when I need it. I opened the wrong door, stepped into the wrong hallway at the wrong time, and I heard my name, Sofia, spoken low, like a problem no one wanted to deal with yet. Matteo Rinaldi stood facing my father. Two men, stiff-backed and quiet, surrounded by old books and heavier truths. They didn't see me, not at first. She's exposed, Matteo said, voice flat. The routes she's using, the times she leaves, the shops she favors, they're tracing patterns through her. She doesn't carry family intel, my father said. They're not watching her for what she knows. They're watching her to get to Isabella. I didn't breathe, didn't move. I wasn't meant to be important. I was meant to be loud, bright, distracting, not vulnerable. Matteo continued. If they wanted to hit Isabella, they'd use the sister with no tail, no guards, the one who slips out the back gate when no one's watching. Then put someone on her, my father muttered. I already did. The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. I backed out before they saw me, before they knew I'd heard, before I had to look Matteo Rinaldi in the face and ask him why he knew more about my habits than I did. By dinner, he was sitting at our table, not close, not with us, at the end, near the window, his hands folded on the white linen, untouched plate in front of him. Francesca asked who he was. I didn't answer, because I knew. Matteo Rinaldi is known for two things, silence and precision. He doesn't make mistakes, he doesn't leave a trail, and he doesn't get assigned to anyone unless there's danger. No one wants to name out loud. I was the sister they never assigned shadows to, the one who didn't need them, until now. The next morning, I tested the theory. I left through the side entrance, not my usual gate, no driver, no text. I walked 2 blocks to the corner florist just to see if he'd follow. He didn't, but when I came out, the barista from the coffee shop next door handed me a cup I hadn't ordered. Guy in a dark coat paid for it, she said. Didn't say much, just pointed to you. My stomach tightened. He wasn't behind me, he was already ahead. By the time I got back, he was leaning against the stone railing of the second-floor landing like he'd been there the whole time. I'm not a child, I snapped. He didn't flinch. I know. Then stop following me. His gaze was unreadable. I'm not following you, Sofia. I'm watching you. I hated how calm he sounded. How certain. You don't get to. I do, he said. Because your father agreed to it, and because your family's enemies have started watching you like you're the softest point in the wall. I stepped forward. I'm not soft. His expression didn't change, but something in his voice did. I know that too. He didn't say anything else, just turned and walked down the stairs, as if I hadn't just tried to fight the only man keeping his eyes on me. I told Isabella that night. She didn't act surprised. You're not a decoy, she said. They're not using you to get to me. You're the prize. I rolled my eyes. That's not poetic. That's insulting. It's not poetry. It's strategy. Her voice softened. And he was right. You move like no one's watching. I looked down. Because she was right too. The next week passed like surveillance. He was never close, but he was always there. I stopped going places just to see if he'd show up. Because he always did. No matter the time, no matter the place, no matter how far out of my way I went, he was already there, sometimes behind, but more often, ahead. Once I cut through the old chapel courtyard just to clear my head. It was cold, quiet. I didn't think anyone saw me, but when I turned the corner, he was sitting on the edge of the low stone wall, hands folded in his lap, watching the street. You're not subtle, I said. He didn't move. You didn't want subtle. You wanted to feel safe without admitting it. The honesty knocked the air from my lungs. He looked at me then. You don't want to be followed. No, you want to be chosen. I left before I could react. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I tried to pretend it didn't matter, that I didn't care who noticed me, that I didn't care who noticed me. Didn't want to be a target, just once for the right reasons. But the truth was, he saw me. He didn't flinch when he saw me. He tracked every step I took, not because I was reckless, but because I mattered. I woke up the next morning to find a small box outside my door. Inside, my navy scarf, folded perfectly, no note, just precision and silence. I knew he was in the house before anyone told me. The hallway was quieter. The guards stood straighter. Even the air felt different, like it had stiffened around the edges. Then Valentina said it over breakfast, casual as anything. Some Rinaldi guy moved into the east wing. My spoon paused halfway to my mouth. Elena said he's staying until things calm down, she added, not looking at me, but I was already on my feet. I found him unpacking a single bag, not into drawers, into a chair, black t-shirts, 2 pairs of slacks, 1 folded jacket, that was it. He didn't turn around when I stepped into the room. I didn't invite you, I said. I wasn't asking. His voice was calm, controlled, like we were talking about the weather, not the fact that he was sleeping 2 doors down from mine. This is my wing, I told him. I'm aware. Then go to another one. No. I stepped further into the room, letting the door close behind me. Are you always this agreeable? Only when it's a bad idea to be liked. I paused. So you don't want to be here. I want you alive. The air went still between us. He turned then, and when his eyes met mine, I saw it again, that terrifying steady quiet, the kind that didn't ask for understanding. It just watched. You've been followed, he said. 2 times. We caught it. That doesn't mean we'll catch the next one. Then let the guards. You were almost grabbed. The words hit harder than a scream. You weren't told, he added, because they knew you'd say no to protection. But that day at the flower stall, you were the decoy. The plan wasn't to hurt you. It was to take you. My breath caught. He kept going. I'm not here for charm. I'm not here for you to like me. I'm here to make sure they don't get another chance. He could have been cruel, but he wasn't. He was just exact, the kind of truth that strips away the illusion of safety. I walked out before I said something I couldn't take back, but I didn't tell him to leave, because part of me, deep, buried, ashamed, didn't want him to. That night, I opened my bedroom door and found him standing at the end of the hall, not moving, not looking at me, just there. I stared at him for 3 seconds. He didn't blink, so I closed the door again and leaned my back against it, heart pounding. The next day, he started following me inside the house, not right behind, not obvious, but always within reach. When I went to the kitchen, he leaned against the pantry door. When I took a call in the back courtyard, he stood just inside the shadow of the archway. When I escaped to the library, he sat 3 rows over, reading nothing. He didn't talk, didn't ask questions, didn't act like he belonged, but he never left. I hated how steady it made me feel. It happened on the corner of Via Tasso and Bellini, an old brick crossing, always quiet, the kind of street no one bothered with unless they had a reason. I was walking too fast. I always do when I'm trying not to feel cornered. I didn't see the black car until it sped too close. Someone yelled, and then his hand. Fingers closed tight around my arm. He pulled, hard. My body slammed against his chest. The car passed inches from where I'd been. I couldn't speak. His hand stayed on my arm. His other arm wrapped around my waist. We didn't move. You weren't paying attention, he said quietly. I looked up at him. You were. Yes. He didn't let go. Not right away. And I didn't pull back. Later I would remember the feel of his chest against mine. Not tense, not panicked, just there, like a wall, but warm. That night, I sat on the back patio, wrapped in a blanket, drinking jasmine tea I didn't taste. The chair beside me shifted. He didn't speak, just sat. Minutes passed. The quiet didn't feel heavy. It felt offered. Finally, I said, "Why me?" He didn't pretend not to understand. "Because you leave the house without telling anyone. That's not an answer." "It is," he said. "You're easy to underestimate." "So they do." I swallowed. "You don't." "No. Why not?" He looked at me, slow, measured. "Because the first time I watched you, you were laughing." I blinked. "What? You were in the kitchen," he said, talking to the driver's wife. "Everyone else passed her without seeing her. You made her tea." I said nothing. "You weren't pretending," he added. "And that's rare." He stood then. I thought he'd leave, but he didn't. He walked behind my chair and set something on the armrest. My scarf, folded. I figured you'd lose it again. He was halfway across the patio when I asked, "Is this protection?" He stopped, then turned his head. "No," he said. "This is watching the prize. The greenhouse is the only place no one follows me. Too hot in summer. Too quiet in winter. The sisters forget it exists. The guards don't bother. Even Isabella doesn't ask why I disappear for hours at a time. But today he finds me anyway. I'm elbow deep in dirt, tending to a vine that refuses to stay on its line. I've tied and retied the same strand 3 times, hands raw through my gloves, breath sharp. It's not about the plant. I just need something to fix, something I can control. The air shifts. I don't hear footsteps, but I feel him, and when I turn, he's already there just inside the door, not moving. Matteo Rinaldi, silent as stone, still as breath held too long. He doesn't speak. Neither do I. Not right away. You know this is where I hide, right? His voice is low. You call it hiding. What do you call it? Choosing peace. I look back at the vine. Is that what you think I want? I think you want someone to notice when you're gone. The words stop me. I don't answer. Because I can't. I go back to tying the branch, but my glove snags on a hook. Splits at the seam. Damn it. I yank it off, crumpling it in one hand. Then he's in front of me. I blink. What are you? He kneels. Kneels. Not dramatically, not slowly, like it's normal, like it's nothing. His hand reaches gently for mine. I let him take it. He doesn't look up, just studies the small tear on my skin, the thin red line across my knuckle. Then wordlessly, he pulls something from his coat pocket, a bandage, clean, folded. He wraps it around my hand without speaking. His fingers are precise, warm, steady. When he finishes, he finally looks up. His eyes meet mine, close, still crouched, still below me. You didn't flinch, I say. I watched you pull a thorn from Lucia's palm last week. You didn't flinch either. I blink. You were watching? Yes. Why? Because you do things no one else notices. The silence that follows is thick, almost sweet. He stands, slowly, gaze still locked with mine. You could have let the guard bring this, I say. I don't trust the guard. You don't trust me either. I do. He says it without hesitation, and I believe him. Later, I sit on the ground beside the vine, legs stretched, arms resting on my knees. He doesn't leave. He stays leaning against the wall, close enough that I can feel his presence, far enough not to be an invitation. I speak before I know what I'm saying. When I was 9, I cut my leg bad on a metal fence behind the chapel. I didn't cry. He watches me. I wanted someone to notice. But by the time I limped back inside, the dinner table was full. I wrapped a dish rag around it and smiled like nothing happened. His brow furrows, just slightly. They never knew, I say. Not even Isabella. I don't know why I'm telling him, but I am. I exhale. They see what they expect to see. I talk too loud, wear heels too high, act like I don't care. I pause. I do. He doesn't speak, doesn't rush the moment, just listens, fully. I don't want to be the sister they almost lose because no one was looking closely enough. You're not, he says. I look at him. You're the sister they didn't realize was worth the war. I stand then, because if I sit any longer, I'll say something I can't take back. I need to check on Francesca. He nods, doesn't follow. I leave the greenhouse in silence. But when I reach the path, I glance back. He's still there, still watching, like he always is. That night, I find a new pair of gloves on my bed. Same color, same size, finer stitching, no note. The next day, I let him walk beside me, not behind, and I don't ask him to leave. That evening, I fall asleep in the greenhouse. It wasn't on purpose. I just curled into the corner of the bench, warm from the sun, too tired to move. I wake hours later to the sound of the door shifting open. My heart jumps, but I don't move. I just watch. Matteo steps inside, sees me. He doesn't call my name. He doesn't touch me. He sets a folded blanket beside the bench, then sits on the floor outside the door, back to the wall, gun at his side, eyes on the dark. I don't sleep again. I just watch him, until dawn breaks over his shoulder. I need to pause here, because this is where I stopped believing he was only here for duty. He didn't speak much, didn't try to win me, didn't touch me unless I was already breaking. But when he wrapped my hand so carefully, like I was something delicate he already knew how to hold, I stopped pretending I didn't feel it. He wasn't guarding me anymore. He was choosing me, and I didn't want him to stop. Let's get back to my ultimate temptation. I didn't want to go to the event, but when your father says it's important, and your eldest sister sends you the dress without asking your opinion, and the entire security team shifts its schedule for you, you go, you smile, you wear heels, you blend, you play the part of the harmless Moretti girl with a soft mouth and a sharper laugh. Matteo didn't come in with us. He stood at the side entrance of the hotel, dressed in black, earpiece barely visible, like he belonged to the building more than to me. He didn't say a word as I passed him, but when I caught his reflection in the mirrored lobby, he was already watching. The ballroom was all chandeliers and strings of music I couldn't name. Francesca charmed the host. Elena talked politics with the senator's son. Isabella stood like a queen. No one dared approach without permission. I danced once, smiled twice, then disappeared through a side door without warning. No one followed, except him. The balcony was quiet, not cold, but open, a contrast to the velvet and voices inside. I leaned over the stone railing and let myself breathe. Too much? He asked behind me. I didn't turn. You tell me. You've been watching me long enough. I wasn't assigned to that room. Didn't stop you. A pause. Then, I follow tension. I turned slowly. He stood by the doorway, hands in his pockets, eyes darker than usual in the low light. And do you find it? Constantly. His gaze didn't drop from mine, especially around you. I crossed the space between us before I could stop myself. My heels were too high, my steps too fast. I didn't care. He didn't move, but I could feel it, the quiet strain in his body, the control. You never look away, I said. No, why? His jaw flexed. Because you never look back. The air pulled tight between us. Neither of us spoke. I took one more step. Say it, I whispered. His breath hitched. Say what? That I'm not the job. He stared at me like the words were trying to break out of him. You're not the job. I kissed him, soft, full of breath and want and defiance. He froze, but only for a second. Then his hand came to the side of my face, slow, firm, reverent, and he kissed me back. It wasn't hard. It wasn't frantic. It was the kind of kiss that says I've wanted this too long to waste it. His other hand found my waist. My fingers curled into his jacket. The city moved behind us. Cars, lights, horns, but here, everything was still, until I pulled away. He let me, barely, his forehead pressed to mine. His voice was a rasp. We shouldn't, I whispered. Then stop me. He didn't. A breeze passed between us. My dress fluttered against his leg. His breath was still rough at my temple. Then he pulled back, slow, eyes shuttered. If I keep doing this, I won't be able to protect you the way they want me to. What if I don't care what they want? He looked at me like that answer scared him more than the gun he kept under his coat. We didn't go back inside. He walked me to the car, didn't speak the entire way, but when he opened the door, his fingers brushed mine, and that 1 second was everything. Back at the house, he didn't walk me to my room, didn't need to. He was already in it. I opened the door, stepped inside, and found a note on my bed. Not in his handwriting. It was typed, short, 2 lines. She's not the sister we want, but she'll make him bleed anyway. I stared at it for a long time. Then I folded it, walked out into the hall, and handed it to him. Matteo read it once, twice, then looked at me. You were never invisible. They moved him the next morning. No announcement, no conversation, just an order. Matteo was reassigned. A new driver, a new escort, a polite man with 2 bright eyes who called me Miss Moretti, like he'd never spoken to a woman without a script. I asked nothing. I said less. I walked through the day like I was rehearsing someone else's life. He didn't say goodbye. I didn't ask for one, but the space he left behind was impossible to ignore. Francesca noticed first. You're quiet. I shrugged. Did something happen with... She hesitated. Your shadow. I shook my head. Nothing happened. She didn't believe me, but she didn't press, because I think she knew that whatever happened, it mattered. By late afternoon, I was on edge. The new driver was late. Not by much, 7 minutes, but it was enough to make the guards shift, enough to make my skin prickle. He pulled up outside the south gate. I got in. 2 minutes later, I realized he wasn't headed for the estate. Wrong turn, I said. No answer. Hey, you missed the exit. Still no answer. My chest went tight. I reached for my phone. It wasn't in my bag. It wasn't anywhere. I grabbed the door handle. Locked. The man beside me finally spoke. You should have stayed quiet. It was fast after that. Too fast. A sharp right turn. A gravel road. A second car appearing behind us. They boxed us in, like it was always meant to happen this way. I didn't scream, didn't beg. I waited, because the second the door opened, he was there. Matteo. Not in black, in gray. No jacket, just a gun in his hand and rage in his eyes. He pulled the door open before they could, grabbed me by the waist, pulled me out so fast the air left my lungs, and shoved me behind him. 2 shots. 1 dropped. 1 fled. He didn't chase. He turned, grabbed my face in both hands. You okay? I nodded. He didn't let go. You're sure? I nodded again. Then, only then, he breathed and pulled me fully against him. I stayed there, pressed to his chest, his arm tight around me. Neither of us spoke, because we both knew. Someone tried to take me, and they almost did. Back at the estate, the silence was louder than any siren. My father looked at me like he didn't recognize what I'd become. Isabella's jaw was tight. Elena said something sharp I didn't hear. And Matteo? He stood beside me like he was welded to my side. You disobeyed a direct reassignment, my father said. I did, Matteo answered. You left your post. I never left it. His voice was calm, but I felt the fury in his hand still wrapped around mine. You think she's safer with you? I don't think, he said. I know. I stepped forward. He wasn't the risk. They all looked at me. I was. My voice didn't shake. I made choices that left me exposed. He made sure I lived through them. The room didn't move. No one spoke, but something shifted, and it stayed that way, because no one asked him to leave again. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the mark the seatbelt had left across my chest. Faint, but there, a reminder of how fast it happens, how thin the line is between watched and taken. The knock on the door was soft. I didn't speak. He stepped inside anyway, didn't ask, just closed the door, and came straight to me. He sat beside me, didn't touch me, but I leaned into him anyway, and he let me. I rested my head against his shoulder. His voice was low. I told them not to move you without me. You were right. I'm always right. I smiled. Barely. Don't let it go to your head. He tilted his head until his cheek brushed my hair. You scared me. You didn't show it. I was too busy getting you back. We sat in silence. His breath was warm near my ear. His hand eventually found mine, fingers lacing slowly, gently. I can't lose you, he said. You were sent to watch someone else. I know. And now, I'm not watching anymore. He turned his head, kissed my temple. I'm staying. I don't fall asleep easily. I haven't. Not since I was 16 and stopped pretending my windows weren't vulnerable. But that night I do. Because he stays. Matteo never left the room. After everything, the gunshots, the fallout, the quiet way my father looked at me like I'd become someone he didn't know, Matteo didn't flinch. He just sat there, beside me on the bed, hand over mine, watching the door. I woke up close to midnight, my hand still in his, my body sore, my head full of the car door, the shove, the sound of the gravel. I didn't move. He noticed anyway. You're awake, he said softly. I nodded. Nightmare? Not exactly. Still stuck there. My throat tightened. Yes. He let go of my hand just long enough to shift, turning toward me on the bed, his posture careful, slow, like I might break. He didn't touch me, not until I leaned forward and pressed my forehead to his chest. I'm right here, he murmured. His hand came up to the back of my head, warm and steady, not guiding, grounding. I know, I whispered. I didn't move. Neither did he. My voice broke. They put me in a car like I was nothing. His grip tightened just slightly. They didn't want information. They didn't want leverage. They just wanted me gone. You're not gone, he said. You found me in time. I always will. I pulled back just enough to look up at him. His eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them. Why? I whispered. He didn't hesitate. Because when they told me you'd been moved, I couldn't breathe. I kissed him, not to forget, not to feel better, but because I knew I wouldn't sleep until I felt something real again. He didn't deepen it, not at first. He let me lead, let me shift closer, let me climb into his lap, one knee on either side of his hips, let me rest my hands against his jaw and breathe him in. Then only then he wrapped his arms around my waist and kissed me back. It was different this time, not the balcony, not restraint. This was slow, sure, still. His mouth moved over mine with a kind of reverence that made my skin ache. His hands stayed at my lower back, never drifting, never rushing. When I started to tremble, he stilled. When I leaned in closer, he breathed deeper, anchoring both of us. You're safe, he whispered between kisses. With me. I believed him. We didn't rush. We didn't undress all the way. My shirt came off. His stayed on. But the connection between us deepened, through touch, through breath, through the simple act of staying. When I laid back, he followed. When I curled into him, he held. And when it was over, not the movement, but the moment, he wrapped me in the blanket, without being asked, and pressed his forehead to mine. Still stuck there? He asked. I shook my head. Not anymore. Later, when the room was quiet again, I lay on my side facing him. His fingers traced the line of my waist, under the blanket, barely there. You didn't have to come back for me, I said softly. Yes, I did. You were off duty. There's no such thing anymore. I studied his face in the dark. You don't belong to the Rinaldis now, do you? He shook his head. I haven't for days. Then who do you belong to? He didn't blink. You. I kissed him again. Not because I needed to, because I wanted to, because I finally understood the difference. This is the moment I should have pushed him away. I wasn't supposed to fall for someone like Matteo Rinaldi. But I didn't push, because when he looked at me like I was already his, I didn't want to be anyone else's, and I knew, if the world came for me again, he'd be the one standing in front of it, every time. Matteo told me once that he doesn't believe in hesitation. Movement saves lives, he said. Waiting costs them. I think about that now, standing in the main hall, watching him walk toward my father with his spine straight, his jaw locked, and his loyalty no longer borrowed. The meeting had been called to discuss my security. Again, the Rinaldis requested another transfer. They said Matteo had crossed boundaries, compromised the mission. They didn't know I was already listening when they called me a mistake, an attachment, a liability. Matteo stood silent while they spoke, but when they finished, he stepped forward. I'm not under your orders anymore, he said. 3 men turned toward him at once. You're not dismissed, one said sharply. I don't need to be dismissed, Matteo replied, voice low. I'm done. You don't get to walk away. He looked straight at my father. Not the Rinaldis. My father. I'm staying here, he said. With her. The room froze. Even the guards shifted, unsure. But my father didn't react with rage. He reacted with silence. That was worse. She's not a shield, Matteo continued. She's not bait, and she's not your message to anyone. He turned his head toward me, and I swear everything inside me steadied. I choose her. That should have been the end of it, but men who feel power slipping always reach for it harder. Rinaldi's envoy stepped forward. This was not your choice to make. Matteo's hand drifted to his side. He didn't reach for his gun. He didn't need to, but they got the message. He'd only draw if someone tried to take me again. My father looked at me. Sofia, he said, voice sharp. Do you want this? I didn't hesitate. I do. We walked out of that room together. Not guard and target, not shadow and sister, but us. 2 people who didn't ask permission anymore. Later, I found him outside the greenhouse. Of course, he was always there when I needed the quiet. He was leaning against the low wall, jacket unzipped, hands braced on the stone. I stepped into the doorway. He didn't turn, but he said, I thought I'd lost you the moment I saw you in that car. You didn't. I know that now. I crossed the gravel slowly, my heels leaving prints beside his boots. I stopped just in front of him. He still didn't look up. I've been loyal to a family that never really saw me, he said. But you, he paused, finally lifted his head. You saw me. I reached for his hand, laced our fingers. I didn't know I was looking for someone until I couldn't stop finding you. That broke something in his face. Not a tear, not emotion, just truth. I'd walk away from everything for you, he said. I don't want you to. I already did. He kissed my fingers, one by one, then held my hand against his chest, right over his heartbeat. I'll protect you even if it means losing everything else. You already did, I whispered. He looked down at me, brows low, jaw tight, eyes soft. You're mine now. I nodded. Say it, he whispered. I'm yours. And I meant it, not because I had to, but because I'd finally chosen him back. That night, he moved into my room, not as a guest, not as a guard, just as him, as mine. The sisters noticed. No one said anything, but Valentina smirked when she saw him come out of my hallway. Elena arched a brow. Francesca whispered something that made Isabella smile. Even she, the one who sees everything, didn't question it, because they all knew what I'd learned the hard way. If a man bleeds for you in silence, if he waits for your fear to pass, if he never stops watching, he's already yours. The morning after he moved into my room, I woke up before him, which is rare. Matteo sleeps like someone who's lived through too many wars to take peace for granted. He always hears things first, notices the shift in the air before I do. But this time, I beat him to it. He was on his back, one hand behind his head, the other resting on my waist, like he'd forgotten he put it there. I stayed where I was, watched the light climb up the wall, listened to the quiet, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like something was about to break. The house adjusted fast. He ate breakfast at the long table. Now, didn't hover, didn't lurk by the doors. Isabella didn't object. Lucia gave me a look that said everything. Even my father didn't say a word. Because it was done, and everyone could feel it. The day after that, I found Matteo in the garden with Gianna. She was trimming roses with a pair of dull shears, grumbling under her breath. He stood beside her, fixing the handle on the bench she liked to sit on. She didn't ask for help. He didn't speak much, but I watched the way she passed him the screws without looking, and how he tightened them like he'd already figured out how she liked it. That's how you know when someone's staying. They start fixing things no one asked them to. At dinner, he didn't sit next to me. He stood, behind me, not like a guard, like someone who knew exactly where I was safest and exactly when I didn't need protecting at all. That night, we walked the perimeter together. I used to hate those walks. They made me feel caged, like I was constantly being tested for weaknesses I didn't know I had. But with him beside me, it felt like something else, like choosing to know the edges of my world and who I wanted inside it. He paused by the old iron gate that hadn't worked since I was 13. "I thought you were going to break away from all this," I said. "I did. This place still has your name in it." He looked at me. "No," he said. "You have my name in you." I swallowed hard. "Matteo." He turned toward me, slow. "I'm not asking for a future right now," he said, "but I want you to know. If it ever comes to that, I'm already in." I didn't answer, not out loud. I just reached for his hand and laced our fingers tight. Later that week, we met with the Rinaldis. Not to beg, not to ask, to close it, officially. I sat beside him at the long table. Let them see me. Let them see him. Let them realize we weren't two players on a board anymore. We were a pair, not because of orders, because of choice. After the meeting, I asked him what it felt like, cutting ties with the men who raised him. He said like I finally stopped paying rent on a house I never lived in. That night, I found a note tucked into my jewelry box. One line. "I see you now." Loud, bright, impossible. I knew it was his. I kept it. The next time someone tried to follow me, they didn't get far, because Matteo had already flagged the plate 2 hours before I left the house. He didn't ask for credit. He just passed me my coat that morning and said, "Your scarf's in the car." It's strange how peace doesn't announce itself. It just arrives, like silence after rain, like breathing when you didn't realize you were holding your lungs too tight. Now, I sleep through the night. I wake up to warm hands and quiet rooms. Sometimes he's already dressed, watching the door, listening for things I no longer need to worry about. Sometimes he's still wrapped around me, like he forgets there's a world outside our bed. Either way, I don't move. I stay. He never says I love you. Not like that, but he says I'm here. I've got you. You're not alone in this. And once, only once, he whispered, "You're not the prize anymore." I asked, "Then what am I?" He said, "You're the reason I stopped choosing sides." That was enough. That was everything. Because I was never looking to be saved, only seen. And when he stepped forward, not as a protector, not as an enemy, but as a man, I knew I'd been claimed without needing to be caught. I'm not the overlooked sister anymore, not the one they used to reach someone else. I'm the one who saw what was coming and stood still. And when the storm hit, he was already there. Thank you for listening to my story. Matteo was never supposed to protect me, but from the moment I saw him in that mirror, watching, waiting, I knew nothing would be the same. If this story stayed with you, I'd love to know where you were listening from, or what moment made your heart stop. My sister Elena's story comes next, and believe me, it's the one no one was ready for. Until then, stay safe, stay close, and don't ever let them tell you you're not worth choosing.